Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. It is a pleasure to be with you all here today. My name is Reverend Andrew Moeller and I use he, him pronouns. First of all, I want to welcome anybody who is joining us today, whether you are here in the sanctuary or whether you're joining us on Zoom. If you're here in the sanctuary, we hope that you will join us after the service for coffee and conversation. It's always a great place to meet new people and to process some of the things that came up for you as you sat through our worship service. It's always a wonderful time to learn and grow. So we hope that you will join us for that. And before we get started here, I think Phyllis has got some announcements for us. So Phyllis.
Podium. Good morning. Just a very short list. The first one is to let you know that Super Sunday is next Sunday. So in your program, if you picked it up, the date was wrong. It's actually February 25th, not January 25th. And you will see that you are invited to bring soup, bread, a dessert, and come and join. You'll see all the tables set up in the Dorothy. We usually have a lovely time of it. Also, next Sunday, we will be having a return to the pulpit of our very own, well, she was for a while, Reverend Rebecca Liberty is coming back because many of us really enjoyed her. So she's coming back as our guest in the pulpit for next Sunday. So please don't miss that. Lots going on next Sunday. Also, in terms of things going on in the community, April 6th, please write that on your calendar. That's our annual UUSB auction, our spring auction. Also note that Sue McKay is your contact person. Wave your hand. Who doesn't know Sue McKay? There is a lovely poster, spring auction, trying to draw your attention to it, and a submission form. I think these are all piled out there on the greeting table in the Dorothy, to pick up in case you have an idea for an item that you want to submit to the auction. I'll let you know, for the first time ever, I'm actually doing a dinner, so stay tuned on that. Lastly, because this is a short list, today is the last day for submitting any UUSB glorification photos to Reverend Drew, who is putting together an awesome slideshow of what it means to be a member of this beloved community and all the fun we have together. So we're going to be having a little slideshow at Stewardship Sunday, so please don't miss that. And if you have any photos that you've actually saved in your Google Drive or your iPhoto, of us doing anything really fun, please, if you want to, send it to Drew. And I think that's it. So we will turn this over now to Reverend Drew for a centering.
So let us take a moment to take a couple deep breaths and intentionally prepare ourselves for the time that we are going to spend this morning together in beloved community. As you breathe, come into the space that you are in, whether you're at home and viewing online or whether you're here in the sanctuary. Feel the energy that is present in your body, whatever that energy is like, and just notice it. And as you prepare, as we prepare to enter into this time of worship together, I want everyone to know that each and every one of you is welcome here. You are welcome here just as you are. Blessed be.
This is our wake-up call. complacency, a call to take action most urgently, a call to all who long for peace, especially me. This is our call to act right now. This is our wake-up call out of complacency, a call to take action most urgently, a call to all who long for peace, especially me. This is our call to act right now. This is our wake-up call out of complacency, a call to take action most urgently, a call to all who long for peace, especially me. This is our call to act right now.
Lighting our chalice this morning will be Jane from the Unitarian Universalist Society of East Connecticut, or East Manchester, Connecticut, UUSE of Manchester, Connecticut. This also is the home congregation of Reverend Drew. So we welcome Jane and her partner Carol here this morning. Beacon of freedom. We kindle our chalice flame this morning, awakening the fire of our ancestors in our hearts. Beacon of freedom held out to light the way, light of reason illuminating the path, spark of courage igniting our spirits, aglow with hope for all we endeavor to do together. Holy flame of times past, brighten this present moment, that we may be the love that is our center and our foundation, both. Blessed be. Now will you join us in singing hymn 1009? When I breathe in, that's in the teal hymnal.
So this is a song you can sing any of the lines and they all braid together. So you can pick a line and sing that one. You can go through all three. Please yourself. I'll sing all three first and then we'll launch in. The first one is just the drone. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Pick a line. I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
So now all those young, little, or medium or large sized, and all others. If you would like to, join Reverend Drew on the rug for a story for all ages.
So today I know there's no SE classes, so I think that we might have a few, maybe have older young people, an abundance of older young people today. So today I want to share a story with you, and we're going to start with a slide here. Desmond Gets Free by Matt Meyer, who is one of our wonderful Unitarian Universalist musicians and kind of a troubadour out of the Boston area, who put together this lovely book about a little mouse named Desmond, and it's dedicated to all those working to build a new world of justice, equity, and compassion. Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every morning, Desmond woke with the sunrise and would spend the day playing in the meadow. And every evening, Desmond would go to sleep in the middle of the meadow under the beautiful starry sky. One night, though, Desmond woke when it was still dark out. He tried to roll over for a more comfortable spot, but something wasn't right. Desmond realized that his tail was stuck right to the ground and was beginning to throb with pain. He felt behind him, and there was a huge boulder that seemed to have fallen in the middle of the meadow right on his tail. Desmond pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail. He pushed on the boulder and tugged on his tail, and he pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged. But it was no use. When he was out of breath, he just about to give up, he saw a giraffe nearby in the grass. Good news, he thought. Oh, giraffe, Desmond cried, could you please push the boulder a few inches in the other direction so that I could go free? So giraffe looked at Desmond and laughed the way giraffes do. Silly mouse, the giraffe said. That's no boulder. That's an elephant that has fallen asleep in the middle of the meadow, just on your tail. Well, if you could wake the elephant up and ask him to roll over a few inches in the other direction, I could go free. Well, the giraffe replied, you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it is best to remain neutral in times like this. Desmond quietly replied, well, I don't appreciate your neutrality. The giraffe wandered off, and Desmond tried calling out to the elephant to wake him up. But those elephant ears were far away on the other side of the elephant. So again, Desmond pushed on the elephant and tugged on his tail. He pushed and he tugged and he pushed and he tugged, but it was no use. When he was out of breath and he had just about given up, a gazelle wandered by. Oh, gazelle, he cried. Oh, gazelle, it seems an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of this meadow. I am stuck and it really hurts. I wonder if you could gently ask him to wake and roll over a few inches in the other direction so that I might go free. Well, the gazelle replied, I see your problem there, but you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it is best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it is best to remain neutral in times like these. Desmond replied to himself this time, I do not really appreciate your neutrality. Desmond tried again to call out to the elephant, and he tried again to push the giant animal away. He tried again to tug, but his little tail free, but it was of no use. When he was out of breath and had just about given up for the last time, he saw another mouse wandering through the meadow. "My name is Nelson. Nelson, this giant elephant has fallen asleep on my tail in the middle of the meadow. I'm wondering if you might run over and call out into his giant ears and ask him to roll over a few inches in the other direction so I could go free," Desmond asked. "Of course," Nelson said. Nelson ran all the way to the other end of the giant elephant body, and he called up into those giant elephant ears at the top of the elephant's head, but the elephant didn't budge. The elephant heard Nelson's small voice far away, but he was too comfortable to move. Nelson ran back to Desmond, a little out of breath. He says, I have an idea. Don't move." So he ran off. "I won't," muttered Desmond. A little while later, though, Desmond emerged through the tall grass, and he wasn't alone. Nelson had found 3 other mouse friends to help him, and each one of them had brought 3 friends. The whole group of them ran over to the giant elephant, and one mouse scrambled onto the shoulders of another, and another mouse stacked upon their shoulders, and then, one after another, they climbed until the whole group of them had formed a long mouse ladder right up the side of the elephant. At last, Nelson climbed onto the shoulders of his mouse friends, one on the top of each other, until he was way up right into the elephant's head and standing right next to the elephant's ear. "Excuse me," he called out into that ear. "It seems you have fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of this meadow, and I am wondering if you would just roll over a few inches in the other direction so he might go free." The elephant made a giant low groan. "Grumph. I'm comfortable where I am. Go away." So Nelson asked his mouse friends to climb up, and one by one they helped each other up the side of the elephant, and one by one they called out to the giant elephant in the giant elephant ear on top of the giant elephant's head. Again, the elephant made a low groan. "Grumph! I am comfortable the way I am. Go away." Then Nelson had an idea. He whispered to the mice, and all at once they yelled together, "Excuse us! It seems you have fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. Roll over a few inches in the other direction so he can go free." This time, all those voices together, right next to the elephant's ear, were too loud to ignore. "I was comfortable where I was, but I'll move over if you just agree to stop making such a racket," the elephant cried out. And then the elephant rolled over a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and the other mice helped each other climb back down, and Desmond was finally free. Desmond and Nelson and all their mouse friends spent the rest of the beautiful day playing in that beautiful meadow. This story was inspired by a wonderful teacher and leader, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is quoted as saying, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. If the elephant has its foot on the tail of the mouse and to say that you are neutral, the mouse will not appreciate your neutrality." And that's our story for today. Yeah. Any thoughts about that from young people of age, or or any of our young people? I kind of like this story. It kind of really spells out. Rosemary. Ah, thank you. Thank you. But I think that really makes things clear. It makes things clear. A lot of the things that we've been talking about around the eighth principle that we've adopted, and some of the things that are going on in the world, I think we feel that ambivalence sometimes. Are we, willing to stand up or do something, or um, is it better to let sleeping elephants lie? Yeah, yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later in our service. So that ends our story. We're not going to be singing our kids down today. So you're welcome to stay on the rug, or if you want to go into our kids area here and hang out, whatever you would like to do. Please join me in the spirit of meditation and prayer. Great universal spirit, interconnected web of which we are a part, we gather in this time and this place, made holy by our presence. We share these joys and sorrows with our beloved community because we know each and every person matters. Today we hold in our hearts the losses of dear beloved family members of our community. We hold those in our hearts who are struggling with trying to get better and heal, and also who are living in the uncertainty of trying to decide whether to follow doctors' advice or not. We also are grateful for visitors and guests, and we are especially grateful for our visitors from Manchester. Good to see them. Spirit, we gather in this time, in this place, because we know that each life tells an important story, and each life holds a deep and abiding truth. By coming together in this time, in this space, and this way, we grow closer to each other, and we grow closer to becoming one. Blessed be. Amen.
Now is the time in our service where we look to spreading our generosity to build and support this beloved community. Plates will be passed. The undesignated cash in the plates for this month of February have been going to the UUSB food programs, bag lunches and bean suppers.
It is with gratitude that we receive this morning's gift to support this beloved community and for our food outreach programs. Thank you for your generosity.
It is that time and that place. Now is the time to call on the memories of the ancestors who thought they could not walk another step towards freedom, and yet they did. It is that time and place to call on the memories of the ancestors who, when the darkness of their lives threatened to take away the hope and light, reached a little deeper and prayed yet another prayer. It is that time and place to remember those who came through the long night to witness another sunrise. It is that time and place to remember the ocean of tears shed to deliver us to this time, to remember the bent knees and bowed backs, to remember the fervent voices asking, begging, and being for loved ones sold off. Time to remember their laughter and joy, so they had far less and little reason for optimism, yet they stayed on the path towards a better day. Time to hold the steadfast hands and hearts and prayers of the ancestors that have brought us this far. Time to make them proud and show them and ourselves what we are made of. Time to show them that their prayers and sacrifices and lives were not in vain and did not go unnoticed, nor have they been forgotten. Did you not know that this day would come? Did you not know that we would have to change places? Did you not know that just as our ancestors were delivered, that would also be delivered? Have you not seen the greatness and power of the creative energy in the universe called God that moves and has its being through human agency? Have you seen God or Goddess in your neighbors' faces, and the homeless, and the battered woman, and the trafficked child, the undocumented worker, the dispossessed? That is the time and that place to know that it is our turn and that we must leave a legacy for our children and all the children. It is that time and place. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. For that, let us be eternally grateful. Amen and blessed be.
So you're invited to sing the chorus of this. I'll sing a line, you repeat it while we learn it. What note are we starting on? Thank you. Great-grandmother, guide my feet. Great-grandmother, guide my feet, that I may find all I seek, that I may find all I seek. Great-granddaughter, guide my hands. Great-granddaughter, guide my hands, that I create all I plan, that I create all I plan. All right, now we'll start. That's where we start. Great-granddaughter, guide my feet, that I may find all I seek. Great-granddaughter, guide my hands, that I create all I plan. For if I could, I'd fill each heart with love so strong that it would start a revolution where peace was
Thank you, Linda and Rissa, and your other singing guests today. Today, Molly and Jack are off for their regular day off, and it's always a nice option to have other talented people be featured in music. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We always love hearing your voices. So over the last couple of years, I have had many conversations with people about the challenges that we face around our living in a life that feels like there's a lot of turmoil going on and whatnot. So this service, I decided to bring a little bit of some of the emerging thought and theology that I've been studying in Buddhism as part of my meditation practice. In his first sermon, the Buddha is quoted as saying, "I teach one thing and one thing only, suffering and the end of suffering, which is the ultimate goal of Buddhism." Now, some people hear those words and they focus on the first phrase and think that Buddhism is kind of pessimistic as a religion. All is suffering. But they neglect the second part of that declaration, and the end of suffering. Viewed from this perspective, the ultimate goal of Buddhist thought, psychology, and philosophy is more about freedom and liberation from what we experience as conscious beings, hosted in bodies that are subject to sickness, aging, health, or death and decay. Suffering we experience as unwholesome, comes from unwholesome mind states, is part of our what it means to be a human being. These include greed, aversion, and delusion. In this context, greed is what we desire and cling to. Aversion is pushing away that which we don't like. And delusion is ignoring or pretending to ignore the truth of what is happening right now in this moment. By learning to recognize these unwholesome states of mind and then working with them thoughtfully, we can free ourselves from suffering they cause and attain a greater sense of freedom. Sometimes the path to freedom is easier to recognize than others. Often it takes experience, wisdom, and in the Buddhist tradition, the Dhamma, or teachings of the Buddha, to help us look at things in a new and creative way so that we can address suffering when it rears its ugly head. So what does that have to do with trying to live lives in stressful times and working for equality? The answer, I believe, is everything. How many of you have listened to the news lately and thought, if only we could go back in time when politicians worked together across the aisle to pass just laws that were good for the whole country? This is greed. Instead, perhaps you found yourself saying, "Oh, if things get worse, I think I'm going to pack up and I'm going to move to Canada." Or I am just going to stop listening to the news because it is so upsetting. Aversion. And maybe you said to yourself, "I may be white, but I am not part of this white supremacy culture problem. I say I am not racist, and I have friends of color, and so the customs and manners that I've learned have been conditioned to as a person of privilege aren't really racist." Then maybe you're experiencing a little bit of delusion. This might sound judgmental, but one of the things that I really appreciate about Buddhist psychology and thought is that it de-emphasizes judgment and helps us go past that and just look at what is happening now directly. If we let these sticky mind states rule our consciousness, they shut our ability to respond. We experience suffering and we see others suffering, and we shut down and we're not able to do much about it. We lose power. We surrender our agency and power, and we live with shame or guilt. Or we maybe even go further and try to argue that the oppressed caused their own suffering, or because they are experiencing suffering because of their own lack of moral character. And in doing so, we create more suffering for others, and we also create more suffering for ourselves. Suppose we cling to wanting to live in a world with no conflict. In that case, we will suffer as conflict becomes internalized. That repressed anger affects our health, our sense of safety, and even affects the way that we interact with our loved ones. Clinging to that notion that we should all live in peace all of the time without conflict is delusional. Wisdom tells us that we need to develop skillful ways of working with conflict. Going to war and bombing innocent civilians does not remove conflict. It creates more suffering. When we engage in aversion, we create suffering for ourselves because we are part of the whole. We think that avoiding suffering might be good, but just because we ignore it or numb it with entertainment or distraction or intoxicants, that suffering does not magically disappear. Instead, we allow suffering to manifest itself, both within ourselves and with others, and we deny our own suffering. Remember Archbishop Tutu's words from earlier. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. So how do we live when we see injustice and inequity happening all around us? We live busy lives caring for ourselves and our families and our communities. Again, Buddhist philosophy has some wisdom to share in the concepts of awareness and mindfulness. Awareness helps us see inequity and injustice and allows us to investigate the causes and conditions that lead to that injustice. Awareness also helps us examine our own role in contributing to causing that injustice. By developing the skill of awareness, we can investigate injustice and inequity with curiosity and love instead of judgment, guilt, and shame, which shut us down. Awareness also helps us see balance. We might feel like we are not experts or perfect in working to dismantle white supremacy culture, and it is also helpful to remind ourselves that we have the power to do something. Just the fact that you are aware of injustice means that you are on the road to doing something about it. So in your awareness investigation, it's helpful to notice and pause and give ourselves or yourself some credit that while there is still much to be done, we are making some progress. This awareness prevents us from becoming hopeless, overwhelmed, or shaming ourselves. So, what about mindfulness? Mindfulness provides us with the opportunity to get creative. It helps us analyze what skills and talents we have that can be employed in dismantling oppression. Back on December 1st, 1955, a young black woman who was tired of dealing with segregation sat down in the front of a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. She refused to give up her seat to a white person as a form of protest. Rosa Parks became an icon of nonviolent resistance for the American civil rights movement and the movement of civil rights worldwide. She didn't do it alone. She had help and support from many community and student organizers who helped publicize this event and supported her after she was arrested. But through her awareness, she realized that she had something in her that could make a difference, and she decided to use it. We might say to ourselves, I am no Rosa Parks. But the point is that she was mindful enough to realize that she had a set of skills and resources that she could use to work for change, and she used them. I wonder what it was like for her in that moment when she was arrested and put in jail. I wonder if she felt courageous or if she felt fearful and small. The important thing is that she did something, and everything that we do affects everything else. There are some powerful things about creativity and not trying to do the same thing that everybody else has done in the past. Sometimes we have to think outside the box to bring about change. The great 17th century Zen Buddhist poet Matsu Basho said, "Do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the wise. Instead, seek what they sought." This creativity led Rosa Parks to think that civil disobedience was an effective way to get her point across. It's the same creativity that helped Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. adapt Gandhi's concept of satyagraha, or truth force, to engage in the work of nonviolent resistance. We all have different talents, and it is essential that we use them. And it's even better when we find ways to use our gifts in a mindful and creative way and working towards justice and equity. That reminds me of another story about Rosa Parks that I don't know has really been told that much. Many years after Rosa Parks' famous act of civil disobedience, she moved to my hometown of Detroit, Michigan. Even as she aged, she went out into the community to meet with school children and tell them about her experience. I was blessed as a child to actually meet her twice. And I was utterly captivated by her calm, kind, and personal manner. Even when you were in a big group and she was talking, you felt like she was talking directly to you. In 1994, Rosa Parks was assaulted and robbed outside of her house in kind of a rough neighborhood in Detroit. Like many of our social justice heroes, she lived a very modest life, especially near the end of her life. She was 81 years old when this happened. She didn't have the means to be able to move or find a safer place to live. One of her friends, a federal judge named Damian Keith, started working with her on trying to find a place to live, but the problem was that there was no place she could afford. The story of Rosa Parks being robbed and assaulted made the newspapers. And one of the people who read the newspaper was a fellow named Mike Ilitch, who was the president at the time of Little Caesars Pizza, and he also owned the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Red Wings sports teams. He contacted Judge Keith, and behind the scenes, he agreed to pay Rosa Parks rent for the rest of her life. There were no press releases. There was no fanfare. There was no, "Look at what I'm doing to make the world a better place," statements in the press. Ilitch saw a great injustice. He knew that he could make a difference, and so he made a commitment. So for the last 11 years of Rosa Parks' life, she lived in an apartment that she chose, and with the aid of her judge friend, Rosa Parks was able to live the last of her years in a dignified manner, befitting someone to whom we owe such a great debt. The news of this arrangement did not come out until Ilitch's death almost 12 years later. Rosa Parks inspired him, and so he took action. Ilitch was a beloved business leader in the Detroit community, but he was not a civil rights leader. But he was disturbed, deeply disturbed by the situation and he uses gifts to make a difference, which leads to my final point. Putting forth effort to work for equity and justice can sometimes feel daunting and challenging, especially when we add that effort to the unending list of to-dos that we set for ourselves. When I regularly work long hours and only have one day to take off to myself, I sometimes feel cautious about taking extra time to engage in doing social justice work. While it is important to be conscious of our own limitations, when we take the time to actively engage in working for social justice and equity, there is also something that is very exciting, freeing, and liberating that comes from it. We are also blessed to be part of a community that holds justice and love at the center of all we do. Maybe you're not ready to be a lobbyist, but you can come and show up for one of our racial equality meetings, a short meeting, a committee meeting, where we learn about systematic racism and we provide an opportunity for us to process experience that you've had in your life of confronting people who are perpetuating white supremacy culture. Or you can come to our Justice Now group that's meeting this Sunday, right after the service, to learn about how you can become involved in working towards gun safety in our state. Or maybe you want to participate in our Bean Suppers that help feed hungry people in our community or contribute to the Second Sunday food collections. These aren't the only ways to get involved, but the power of this congregation is that we provide people opportunities to get involved, and we encourage each other to be creative in finding new ways to be able to serve the community that we are a part of. One of the many reasons that I find resonance in the Buddhist thought and psychology is that I find it provides many useful tools that help me to be present and move through those moments of despair that can lead to inaction. It helps me continue to be engaged in the work of social justice and equity, even in the middle of a stressful life. It provides many antidotes to stress, fatigue, and being overwhelmed, and helps me connect with what we call the joy beyond sorrow that comes from working for justice and equality. The whole thing is being able to take the energy that we feel when we're feeling run down and connect with the energy that we feel when we're doing something about it. That is energizing. That is freeing. That is liberating. This is a lesson of our social justice loving ancestors who have brought us this far, even though we still have a way to go. We may be inspired by their actions and commit ourselves to continuing the work that they have started. And may we continue that work, because that work is something that is never ending. Justice is a never-ending process. It is not a destination. So as we go through and live our lives and live into the fullness of our values, let us heed those words of Desmond Tutu and be aware that if we choose to be neutral, to not be engaged, we are siding on the side of the oppressor. So I now invite our dynamic duo to lead us in our closing hymn, which is different than what's printed in the order of service, so you're going to have to go by the screen, but we found something that we liked better.
So I'm going to teach it line by line. And there are the words. Let's take it up to see. People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be. People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be, where every single person is blessed with liberty, where every single person is blessed with liberty. a greater good for all. Guided by compassion and the greater good for all. Of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. Of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be, where every single person is blessed with liberty, guided by compassion and the greater good for all. Of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. People rise up and make this country the way it's meant to be, where every single person is blessed with liberty, guided by compassion and the greater good for all. Of the people, for the people, at the heart of every law. People rise up.
As we extinguish our Unitarian Universalist chalice flame, symbol of faith, hope, love, connection, and the power and the reminder not to remain neutral in this view of injustice, let us be reminded that although our time of worship has come to an end, our service to each other and the world of which we are a part has just begun. I now invite you to rise in body or in spirit to join in our benediction.